Welcome back to I Need a Coach, where we interview coaches, experts, authors, and speakers, hear their stories of success, what they've overcome, how they build their business, and give you some ideas on building your business. My name's Adam Packard. I'm the host of I Need a Coach. And for the last 7 years, we've helped over 500 coaches, consultants, authors, speakers leverage us to help them with their marketing and business development. I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Alex Wisch. Alex has an incredible story of overcoming depression, severe anxiety as a professional athlete, and he's going to share with you how to get into flow, how to maximize your capabilities, and what he's really good at right now is helping you become a LinkedIn top voice and what that can do for you and your business. So he says he can do it in 12 hours, so let's see what he can do with us. Looking forward to having Alex on the show. Welcome back, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, welcome back to I Need a Coach. I'm your host, Adam Packard, and today I'm joined by Alex Wisch. Is it Wisch? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, like make a wish, exactly.
Make a wish. Awesome. Alex, good to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, you and I connected a few weeks ago, had a great chat. You have a fascinating story. So I'd like to maybe give the audience a little taste into, I know you had some major challenges you overcame and now you're doing some amazing things. So maybe walk us through a little bit of what you went through and kind of where you are now and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so a little bit of an overview. I think I'm going to start a little bit backwards. I'm going to start with the high level where I'm now and kind of work my way backwards to make it make sense. But right now I am a peak performance and executive mental health coach. So basically I help anywhere from executives, entrepreneurs, CEOs, still do a little work with professional athletes, optimize productivity. We look at mindset. We look at leadership. I work with a lot of people overcoming adversities, different challenges, things around mental health in their life. I'm a very creative problem solver. And along this journey, I've also been a serial entrepreneur, at one point as a professional athlete. But in order to get there, the journey was quite a challenging one that put me in a very unique position in my life. And it's also why I'm a big out-of-the-box thinker. So getting along this journey, basically when I was a sophomore at UPenn College, I was like a perfectionist, high-achieving student, had a 4.0 GPA. And during my sophomore year, I just got absolutely burnt out. Sailing also was a big part of my life. I wanted to go to the Olympics. And when I was in college and I started to feel really depressed, I tried to go sailing. And when I was trying to go sailing, the thing that brought me most joy in life, I was literally out there just thinking about like not wanting to live. And I knew at that point that I needed to step away and get help. Now, my journey then, I left, went back home. And what happened over 8 years of my life, battled with very severe depression. Was in and out of the hospital, different residential programs, different kinds of treatment, ended up in disability, unemployed, ended up in debt, went through the whole entire system, had about like 8 different diagnoses from all different treaters. Like it was a pretty crazy experience. And, on top of that, support from family and friends. I lost a lot of those pieces too along the equation. But at one point, at pretty much a breaking point, I was able to rally really hard. And I rode about, I think it was around like 8 to 10 hours, middle of the night on a bike, which is a whole different story you can hop into though. But basically I rode on my bike at one point in my life when I was in this deep depression. And I pretty much proved to myself that I had some abilities that even other people couldn't accomplish when they're in the toughest spots. From that moment on, I focused on my pillars, which is exercise, nutrition, sleep. You have community, mindset, and you have your purpose. Got into personal training. Through personal training, started to work with pro athletes, a lot in the mindset piece, took a lot what I learned about mental health and kind of how you kind of can center yourself around really strong emotions or challenges you're experiencing mentally. Eventually worked with, venture capitalists, investors, people with very high means. And I learned the power of building networks and relationships. Ended up putting together some big real estate deals between different clients of mine, and put together a few multi-million-dollar deals. And then I transitioned, hired different coaches in my life, mentors, became an investor, and studied under some really interesting people like Stephen Kotler when it comes to flow and productivity. Did a little professional sailboat racing and ended up here.
Interesting. So talk about some of the coaches and mentors you hired. Like, what types of coaches, what type of mentors did you seek out? Did they find you? Did you find them? What areas were you looking for help in?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really, really good question. So the biggest thing in my life, I didn't have the traditional college background, right? And because of that, I was always like a self-learner though. I always really pushed myself to learn about things I needed to or really was interested in. So if there was a subject I was particularly interested, I wanted to find, someone who's an expert in that space. So one was like, with Stephen Collar, and they have something called the Flow Research Collective that they're working with like Google and Facebook. And they're really diving into this concept of flow, which is kind of being your peak self. Like the idea of like when time melts away, when you have complete concentration, when your brain is functioning really efficiently, that whole world and research. So, he was someone I kind of like really looked at and his team. But then also, going in the world where I transitioned to executive coaching, when I was working with these pretty big executives, and they would ask these questions that I didn't have all the answers, which is okay. And what I tell people, because, some people have imposter syndrome or they're trying to jump into something they're not sure if they can handle. I'm like, sometimes people are going to ask you questions or they're going to stump you, or they might have things that you don't know how to answer. But if you have someone in your back pocket, like a really good coach that can help coach you through those experiences, and you can bring the answers still back to your clients, like that's the value add. You never want to hand off a person to say, hey, go to this person for advice. You want to get the advice yourself to give back to that individual.
Yeah, makes sense. So interesting about the flow, because I read a lot of books on flow. So what did you learn there? And obviously we're all trying to get into that peak state all day long. So time melts away and we get as much done as we can. Any tips or tricks or advice that you can share with any fellow coaches or entrepreneurs on how to kind of get into that state?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I'll tell you first, the first thing I want to say is how not to get into that state. Okay. The biggest kryptonite to flow is anxiety, right? So one trick in life is how can you reduce anxiety, and learning different skills of how to reduce stress and anxiety is what's going to help you optimize flow. All right. So that's one thing to realize. Two, I'm a huge person where I say, focus on the basics. All right. A lot of people make things way too complicated. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to get into flow, I want to get into biohacking or all these things, the questions I'm going to ask them is, where's your sleep, nutrition, exercise, a couple of the key fundamentals, right? If that person's getting 4 hours of sleep at night, like when you're trying to do a study, you're trying to figure out what's helpful or not. When you're getting 4 hours of sleep at night, like you're not going to be the best frame of mind. Okay. But when it comes to flow, now if we kind of go a little ahead, we look at flow triggers. Like one of the things I was saying is purpose. Like purpose or passion is a huge flow trigger, right? Being in an environment that you have deep body, like if you're in an environment or something where you're physically like present, like if you're out skiing, or there's a lot of ways for like feedback in what you're doing, that can trigger flow. When you have clear goals, that can also help with flow. When you're in an environment where you have clear concentration, minimal distractions. We have other things too that's called challenge skill ratio, meaning that when you're working on a project, you want to have it that the challenge is 7 to 14% above your skill set, which makes it like you're excited, you're learning, you're engaged. But if the challenge is too high, you get anxiety. If the challenge is too low, it creates boredom. So those are a couple of the flow triggers. And there's also group flow, which is like beehive mode, which is working with a team, right? On the coaching side. And that's a whole different thing. But those are some of the main triggers in flow.
No, it's interesting. Have you ever seen that? I think it's an app or a website where you basically partner up with someone. It's like an accountability partner where you meet on Zoom for like 30 seconds before and say, I'm going to work on this task for the next hour. And they tell you what they're going to do. It almost kind of puts you in that narrow focus, like just focus on one thing, get it done. They're kind of an accountability partner because they're on Zoom watching you, but not watching you, kind of doing their own thing. Have you seen this?
I've not seen this.
I got to share it with you at some point. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's like almost like a little accountability group. They pair you up with people. You pick a time slot, and I have to look up the resource for that. But it just allows you to kind of focus on one thing and get it done, and have no distractions.
But kind of building off what you're saying is the something else really big with flow is the art of unitasking. Okay, and we also use this idea of cognitive load. Have you ever heard the term cognitive load?
Mm-hmm.
Where, and just for people who don't know, it's like the idea that if you have a computer up and you have multiple tabs, if you have too many tabs up, the computer's going to run slow, right? So if you're thinking about too many things or you're multitasking, then your mind's not going to be efficient. So one other way to get into flow too is like when you're going into a new project, it's really about like taking a break before you jump into something new, or taking a break before going to another call, stepping out in nature, do a breathing technique, practice mindfulness just to kind of reduce your cognitive load. And like you're talking about, like that unitasking, like focus on one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I want to circle back because you're a big fitness, nutrition, sleep guy. So I was listening to a podcast, Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and I forget the name of the guy that was on there, but he's the guy that, I don't know if he created it, but he does the carnivore diet. So I'd love your take on that, what your thoughts are on that, what your nutrition plan and kind of workout to kind of get yourself into that peak state. What advice do you have there?
Oh, well, I'm first going to throw something out just so people know the level of fitness that I've taken things to real quick. So, I've been a professional athlete as a sailboat racer. I've done ultras. I used to race internationally doing ultra OCR races, obstacle course races, like 30 plus mile races. And then I did these fitness feats where we raised money, about $37,000 for veterans mental health. And I partnered with actually Spartan. And I wore a 24-pound vest, did 1,000 strict pull-ups, 2,000 push-ups, and 3,000 squats. So nutrition.
That just sounds awful.
These are all, topics we dive into, but the big thing about all of these is nutrition. Nutrition makes it or breaks it. And like going from someone like right now, like, I'm dealing with a few injuries, I am active, but not nearly as active as I've been in the past. Nutrition is essential, and I do a lot on LinkedIn, creativity, posts, all that stuff. If my nutrition is off, I'm not in a creative mode. I can't function. I can't focus. And then being an athlete, if my nutrition's off, I'm not making my gains. I'm not recovering. My mood can be off, all the above. So I'll say this. One is, this is such a big topic, so I'm trying to do this. I'm a fan of a somewhat balanced diet. There's a lot with gut biome. Like I'm a huge component of gut biome. And what I know about that is, I'm not going to say I'm plant-based is very broad. I eat meat. Okay. And I try to hit my protein, like about pounds in protein, but a variety in plant, not just the same like vegetables every day, but the more variety in different plants you eat throughout the week has been shown to have a really a good reaction in your gut biome to reduce body inflammation. And body inflammation ties in with your physical health, but it also ties in with your mental health. There's a huge component with that on the inflammation side. Yeah. Along with that, on some even more basic levels, I'm going to mention just hydration. Okay. I'm going to mention this because this was a personal issue. If you are not hydrated properly, and these are all about the basics, if you're not hydrated properly, you're going to be apathetic, you have a low mood, and you're going to be tired. And so many people like nutrition wise, I think it's extremely important, but just hydration wise, you take that piece away, and you're probably going to cut into 15-20% of your productivity, just like that too.
Wow. That's awesome. Well, let's dive in a little bit of the work you're doing now, because when we and I had our first conversation, you told me that you can make anybody a top contributor, top voice on LinkedIn.
Sure. In
12 hours. And so speak a little bit to that. I know you've got 6 different badges right now. I don't have any, so you got to help me get at least one. But I know you can't give away the keys of the kingdom here, but give us a little bit of taste on how you do that, how it's so easy for you to do that, and what are the benefits of being one of those top voices on LinkedIn?
Yeah, no, I'll definitely dive into that. I became an expert in 2023. Now we're in 2024. The whole year of 2023 was I just doubled down on LinkedIn. I picked one social platform that I wanted to master. And I grew from about 4,000, 50,000 followers in that year with over 23 million impressions throughout that entire year. Part of it was understanding the algorithm and what does what, right? So the top voice is showing that you have an expertise in a certain area, a certain field. There's two types of top voice, first of all. There's the blue badge, and then there's the top voice, which shows you being in a specific field, okay? The blue badge, that's particularly picked out by LinkedIn. You have to be a consistent engaged. You have to basically engage in particular content for the entire year for them to see you as like a thought leader in that space. That's different. All right. There's not necessarily an algorithm or formula that really works for that. You just have to kind of really be a leader in that space with content creation. When it comes to top voice in these different smaller subgroups, you basically, what LinkedIn created, they created AI contribution articles. Okay. So if you type in AI contribution articles LinkedIn, it will bring you up to these articles that LinkedIn creates that are AI generated. And then you can add your thoughts to any articles, right? So basically all you need to do is have 3 or 4 of the articles in a particular category that you pick. Right. So for me, like if I picked executive coaching, which I have, I looked at executive coaching, I looked at the articles there, you pick 3 to 4 different articles you feel like you can strongly contribute to. Within those sections, you find a section within an article that you feel like you can answer really well. And if you can answer that question really well, and you're one of the top performers, in that content and people recognize it, that's how you really become a top voice, by creating good content that people recognize on the AI contribution articles on LinkedIn.
Interesting. So the strategy is to search that out, find a topic that executive coaching, business coaching, leadership, personal development, and then just contribute to 3 or 4 articles. And just how often do you have to do that in order to kind of...
Well, yeah, I'd say this. I would say if you get enough notoriety on 3 articles, like you get enough people liking those contributions, like you can get a top voice, right? Sometimes you have to make more contributions just because maybe, what you wrote didn't really ring in with someone. So that's why like people tend to contribute more. But if you do it right and you're a good writer and you have, people engage with it, that can be done. And then it's about every 60 days. If you get it, you don't do anything, you'll lose that badge every 60 days.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But basically, I believe you have to be a top 5% contributor in that particular area to get a badge.
So you have to keep it going. You can't just earn the badge. So like getting your pilot's license, once you have it, you have it. You have to keep it going and stay connected and stay active.
Yeah, a little bit of maintenance. Not everyday maintenance, but like every once in a while you want to add something meaningful. And people can find you through those contributions. I mean, they can bring you clients and other things too.
So what are the benefits of having all these badges other than it's cool? It's like being verified on Twitter, right? So,
well, okay. So I would say you can only pick to show one badge at a given time.
Okay.
You can look at someone's profile and see what badges they have, but you can only show one at a given time. For me, I have another company called Social Prodigy, and we do we help people become an authority on LinkedIn. So the benefit for me to have multiple badges is to show my ability to get multiple badges. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But, having a badge, it just really shows that you're an expert in that space. Yeah. And the more your bio and profile highlights that you're an expert in a particular space, and when you create content for your expertise in that space, it will push the content further. Right. So if my profile highlights executive coaching, and now I also have like a top voice in executive coaching, and I make content on executive coaching, the new LinkedIn algorithm is going to be like, okay, you have an expert in the space. He's making content. He knows what he's talking about. Let's push it harder to his audience.
Yeah. And you had mentioned the profile being a big part of this and making sure that your profile has to really line up with your expertise and who you are and what you do and who you serve. If that's not there, then all your contributions probably not going to work.
Yeah. I mean, your content too, the algorithm for LinkedIn changed in the last year drastically, where on your bio, think of it this way. When you create a LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn's going to pretty much create 1 to 3 lanes for you to fit in. Okay. So, I mean, they could be like, you might have like one specialty or three specialties or things that you focus on in your work, right? And when it creates those three lanes and kind of identifies you in those three categories, when you create content in those categories, that's where it's going to push you the hardest, right? Yeah. So for me, like I'll make content and my content can get anywhere from on the low side, let's just say like 35 or 40 impressions up to like 1 million or so impressions. But if I write about something that's out of my quote unquote, like what they think I'm knowledgeable at, even if it's good quality writing, it might only get 5,000 impressions. It won't push it.
Got it. Interesting. So who's your ideal client? So who do you love to work with? People are coming to you and I'm sure you get requests and referrals. Do you do any outreach to find people, or is it all just inbound at this point? And who's your ideal person that you'd love to work with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at a place in my career that I really get to kind of pick and choose who I work with, which I like. And I really connect with that person. For me, an ideal client, I would say, I've worked with so many people in so many different categories, but it's somebody that has a strong purpose or passion, okay? Or really wants to find their purpose or passion and is really willing to do whatever it takes on a motivational side to get there. Because if someone's not willing to put the effort in, then I can't really fully help them as a coach. When people have gone through a lot of different, they've gone through many options, tried different things out, and they can't find what works for them, I'm a really, really good problem solver and creativity. Like when I look at a client, I don't put people in boxes. People ask me, so what's your model? I don't have an exact model. I'll use science, and statistics to kind of start with something solid, but then I see each person I work with as an outlier, right? And I look at helping people create their own personalized user manual. So anywhere from like, entrepreneurs that are really have some ambitious, idea of what they want to create. I work with like serial entrepreneurs that are trying to, organize or manage multiple companies and how they optimize their productivity, to people who are professionals or executives that are, running a job, but they kind of hit burnout, or, they're dealing with just additional stressors. And they're trying to figure out how to kind of re-navigate their lives.
That's awesome. I would love to have you back on. I think we could go into multiple topics again in the future. So, right? I know we could talk for hours probably. So how do people find you? This is your chance to kind of share a little bit more about your work. If obviously they can find you on LinkedIn, but anything you want to share to kind of promote yourself here, here's your chance.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, with me, you can find me first of all on LinkedIn. I'll say like I've doubled down on LinkedIn. That's my main place. I do a little bit on IG, but all fresh content, anything you learn about me is on LinkedIn. Okay. I'll also be launching my own podcast soon, by the way. That's soon to come out. It's called Death by Pretzel, the Untold Story About Mental Health. And we're diving the worlds of mental health, psychedelics, what works, what doesn't work, a lot of the things taboo that people aren't talking about. So that's going to be a big thing coming out. So if you want to hear more about that, check out my LinkedIn, you'll learn. But yeah, I mean, the big thing about me is, look, I'm the kind of guy that on the coaching world where I have that creative aspect that really, I just want to emphasize this. For me to get better, it took out of the box thinking, right? And when I look at people, and I've worked with professional athletes, and I've helped them, actually helped a girl when I was doing the performance stuff to help her become second in the world in Spartan, actually, in OCR worlds, her first year competing. It's all because I look at people very individualized. So very passionate about what I do. If my client's not successful, then I'm not successful. And so it's, I love what I do and I'm extremely passionate. And yeah, I think that pretty much says it all.
That's awesome. No, it was great to reconnect and thanks for sharing all this insight and knowledge. I'm sure people are going to get a lot of value out of it. So we'll definitely have you back on and would love to, can't wait to listen to your podcast as well. I got some great guests I think you could have on yours too. So let's stay connected, in touch, and looking forward to chatting with you again.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on this episode of I Need a Coach. If you've made it this far, I genuinely appreciate your dedication. Putting this podcast together takes a lot of time and energy. In return, we only ask one thing, which is if you could please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps our show get in front of more people so we can help more people. This is Adam Packard signing off. Keep coaching, keep thriving, and see you in the next episode.